welcome back and get excited for the upcoming workshop presented by Katrina and Elizabeth. Presented by Katrina and Elizabeth of Free Street Theater. Please come on out, tell us a little bit about Free Street, and then give us a rundown of what the workshop's going to be. We're excited to jump in.
Yeah! Thank you all for being here. Like Kevin said, my name is Katrina. I'm she, her pronouns. I'm producing artistic director at Free Street. I've been with the company since 2013, so 12 years in. Started as an intern back then and still remain. And this is?
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Nugaray. I'm the engagement manager at Free Street Theater. I've been with Free Street first as an artist in 2017, and I joined as staff in 2021.
We have a little bit of presentation to give you a little bit of context in Free Street's history, where we are today in our current practice. We have a really bite-sized version of what like a first day at a rehearsal with an ensemble could look like for us. And if we have time, we'll have time for some questions or maybe a couple work samples, but we're going to just see where time leads us and give more time to what is ever feeling juiciest for us in the room. We like to be as flexible as we can. So we can go ahead and go on to the next slide. So Free Street was founded in 1969 in the wake of back-to-back riots here in Chicago in 1968. Before they were the Illinois Arts Council, a group got together and they said, how can we heal a divided city? And really saw the arts as a tool to do that. So they brought in Patrick Henry to go ahead and create sort of a company that could do that, and his pitch was Free Street Theater. We can go to the next slide. Hello. Back one. There it is. Great. So one of the key statistics that Patrick Henry was responding to was that over 90% of Chicagoans had reported to never see theater before, and the majority of those folks were on the south and west sides. Of course, if you're from here, if you're joining us in a live stream of any sort, you know that Chicago, by every metric, is the most segregated city in America. So really wanting to make sure that theater was getting to folks who didn't typically see theater, but also that theater was showing folks of different races and genders being joyfully on stage together. So at the time in the early 70s, what that really, social justice really looked like being together in joyful ways and showing and demonstrating that to different communities. So they literally had a free street theater. They took a semi-truck out to different parks across the south and west side where they would open the truck up and they would do all of these musical numbers and things like that. There is a lot of history between 1969 and today. We only have a little bit more than an hour with you, so we're really going to just jump forward a couple decades, really getting to the past decade, kind of when we come into the picture. So up here we have our current mission, which is Free Street is a FEM-led arts and culture organization here in the city of Chicago that really focuses on the health and well-being of the south and west sides, focusing on BIPOC, queer, and youth artists, Chicago artists, immigrant artists, really creating theater that can be a tool in a larger social justice strategy, as well as creating a community program that is responsive to the needs of our program. So what is an arts organization can we do not only to tell the stories through our work, but also to really be an active part of our communities. And in 2023, we more formally added environmental justice to our mission. So racial and economic segregation, as you can hear from where we were founded in the late 60s, has always been a key focus in challenging the racial and economic segregation of our city. But in continuing to pursue that, we really found that environmental justice was an urgent need here that we felt really called to focus on in our work. So we're going to share a little bit just about what types of work we do and how we really got to that formalization of environmental justice. So we can keep going. So there's sort of like three key places we can categorize our work. So one is that we have original ensemble creative productions. We do this with youth. We do this with multi-generational ensembles where they spend a year to 2 years researching, investigating an issue, and creating a play around that. Also, we'll get into a little bit how community partners are a part of that process as well. We have an in-house artist in residence program This is really focused on emerging artists here in Chicago that really haven't gotten the chance yet to get to dig their hands into producing maybe their own work yet. I find in Chicago, emerging artists is maybe sometimes like a little bit later in career than it might be for other folks in like New York, let's say. So this is really aimed at especially Chicago artists, artists of color, queer artists, youth artists again, giving them the chance to go through a 3-year professional development process with us. So they have several workshops throughout the year where they learn how to produce a show, how to create a production timeline, how do you run a rehearsal, and then in the end of that process, we give them some money and allow them to kind of produce their own work. And then I'll let Elizabeth talk about this third and fourth category.
Can you read what it says right there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Then, did you know there's over 250 theaters in Chicago? And I was gonna ask, like, to guess how many on the south side, but since you could read it, it kind of gives the answer away. So there's about 7 theaters on the south side, right? But even seeing it geographically, the south side and like west side of Chicago is bigger, right? So because of that discrepancy, there was a collective of artists from the south side who were working on a project in 2017 and decided, you know what, we're gonna open a space with Free Street on the south side. And that south side space, we wanted to really reflect not only some of the artistic trends that are happening on the south side, but also be a bridge between like what is community and the arts, so bringing that together.
Well, can we keep going?
Huh?
I said we can keep going.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, we have a long-form community-centered process. So we do research, we interview people, we do story collecting activities with the public, we do field trips where we go out to different spaces, but a really key part of making any production is having a community partner. So identifying an organization, an activist-led group, someone who is really trying to fight for change in the specific area we are looking at. And we partnered with them and we asked them, what is the strategy right now that you are trying to accomplish? What is urgent to you? And how can our play really be a tool and a tactic in that strategy? So really trying to discover, like, what can this play do that maybe you're not able to accomplish right now, whether that's connect you to a broader audience, maybe communicate really complicated data in a more like audience-friendly way, or maybe have an opportunity to like table at a show and have folks sign up to volunteer, things like that. I think we can go to the next slide because it gets a little bit more into that. Yeah, sorry, next one. I'll do the
Yeah,
gesture.
we decided on a gesture, so that's for the next slide.
And how do we create community partnerships? So one of the key ways is that we are not just solely reaching out to people for each show. We really have a process of being embedded with community in a variety of ways throughout the year. Maybe Elizabeth, you can share a little bit about what that was.
Yeah, I feel like a discussion I always have, like not just at Free Street, but with other theater companies, is like, do you want community marketing or community engagement, which are two complete different things. So a lot of times we think that community engagement is inviting people to a show, but it's actually more marketing than actually engaging with the community. So for example, in Back of the Arts, where we have one of our spaces, it's been about like 4 years attending every single community meeting, or as much as possible. Sometimes, you know, I may have a doctor's appointment, I can go. But also really being involved with either causes or other organizations and really highlight what are the different causes that are happening, or if they need something, we're there. So it is that continued like acts of service that we always want to offer, and we always have like conversations about what best fits, you know, whether it's a show or what is something they want to highlight. For example, we'll get to it right now, but our next show is on water, right? And we've been like in conversations with, even like within the last year, with different environmental organizations, and just learning about data centers, learning about this even before we even start the rehearsal process. So it's not just like a parachute in, right? And even for different community members, saying like, what is the things that you want to see in your neighborhood, and center our programming on their responses.
And so the ideas of like, how do we decide on what a show is going to be about doesn't come from our leadership team, which is me and Elizabeth, as well as Koya Paz and Bella Pels, who you've got the leadership team for. It's not just us sitting around and being like, what's happening right now? Like, quick little Google, oh, that could be a really cool play, right? It's really about being in constant conversation and starting to hear those trends and being like, hey, we're hearing a lot about truck emissions. We should probably start to explore what a show that centers the issues with diesel and truck emissions on the south side is, right? So that is really part of the process. So we can go to the next slide. Amazing. So we're talking about environmental justice a lot, and I just want to give like the tangible sort of moments of that like reflecting back that kind of got us there. So in 2019, really the process started in 2018 when our youth ensemble was pursuing a play about water justice called Parched. This year it's coming back, Parched 2.0. And this was really in response to the reporting that was going on about high amounts of lead in the water at Chicago public schools throughout the south and west sides, schools that many of our students go to. And it really being apparent, especially that was at the wake of Flint as well, being apparent of how much of an issue it was for them to have access to clean water in their schools and their homes. And so that really drove forward doing Parched. That summer, 2019, we turned 50, and while we were developing our show, it was called 50 and 50. We performed in all 50 wards of the city in one day, hiring over 100 artists to develop work that would go around and tour. We were touring the neighborhoods to kind of figure out, okay, where do you want us to perform? We're going to be in your ward, where should we be? And in one of the wards, we were told a story about how trash cans were being stolen by waste management workers and purposely tossed away so that they wouldn't have to stop in that neighborhood as frequently. And so this question about like who and what neighborhoods are disposable, right? Either by industry being placed there or by things being taken away to make it harder to keep a community clean, right? Came up. So we were pursuing wasted. And in these, we're partnering with organizations like Little Village Environmental Justice Organization, Neighbors for Environmental Justice, Freshwater Labs, which began to also bring out stories that was like industrialization is a big issue and gets us to there is a future.
Yeah, so there is a feature. We started a storytelling series, and through that we asked a question: what are the hidden histories of Chicago? And so through that, it kind of developed into just learning about industry. And what we label as sacrifice zones in Chicago is primarily in the south and west side. And in those industrialized zones are labeled as sacrifice zones, but a lot of times it's like we sacrifice people as well, right? So it's not just a zone or a place, it is people living there. And during the pandemic, these people were called essential workers, right? So why is it that all of this is labeled as a sacrifice to only serve a certain demographic in Chicago, right? And so there's a future ended up being from called buried seeds, industry something, to actually what does it mean to instill hope, right? There is still a future to live. And so with that, we started in the parks and then brought it back inside, and we partnered with Neighbors for Environmental Justice, and we also focused on the Hillco explosion and the matte asphalt campaign.
Yeah. And so we really, before I kind of just speak on what this is, like we were in constant back-to-back productions of hearing of a continued urgent thing. When we started working on Wasted, this was before the implosion of the Crawford coal plant to make space for the new Hillco Target site. If you're not aware of that implosion, like this is, I think, also exactly some of the reason why this work is so important is how much these stories are sort of hidden from a larger Chicago like stories. And so just being like, this is happening. There was an overnight implosion of a giant old coal plant right in the village during the pandemic, April 2020. Not even like the vaccine is out, like the first month, right? And so that's already happening while we're building Wasted. And so I think for us, we were like, this is urgent. This is really like killing our communities, and this is something that like we need to be doing constant coalition building around in order to have a more equitable Chicago. And so in 2023, we were really looking at like, who are we right now? What is our mission? What do we want to pursue? And that's really where we looked at ourselves and we're like, we're a femme-led collective. That is like how we all identify, and that is really central, I think, to how we run our operations, how we demonstrate care and community. So that felt important to name, as did really saying like, we are going to add environmental justice and we are going to double down on this right now and continue these efforts beyond just like doing them in a show, like this is who we are. And each show that we do, we make sure that we bring in connection to the issue, so making sure people feel connected to water, to air, to those things. We introduce the issue, and we also make sure to introduce action, so that the play can't be separate from an action plan. I think I'm up on my time. I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth to keep talking about acting arts.
I'll try to speed through this. I love maps and data, so I wish I had a laser pointer over here, but as you can see, Chicago. So over here, you kind of see on this map, where pink is white population, orange is going to be Hispanic, Latino, and black is the color blue. So you kind of even see around here where the south side is, the west side, and the north side, right? So when we have this map where we have pretty much our demographics split up by color, and you impose who has access to arts education, the blue represents the density of where funding and programming is. So just in the arts programming, 93% of arts programming and funds go to the northeast side of Chicago, where it is the majority white population, right? And so here, it's more arts education. So there's little pockets, of blue, but you can see how big the south side is compared to the north side. And also over here, also where less than 10% of funding goes, it's all, Black and Latino populations over here. So that is to say, when we talk about what is arts justice and arts for social change, it is also like completely reflective of the demographics in Chicago. You can go to the next slide.
Is that government funding?
Just as a whole, yes, it does include government funding. Can we go to the next slide? Is there a video on that?
What?
Oh.
Oh, that's the next
That's the next one. Oh,
we can keep
cool.
going. We talk about this.
So, for now looking at that data, I kind of feel like it paints like the picture of just as like an arts organization, how we're navigating just theater in Chicago. And so for the story front, even as a kid, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, when I would have to see anything arts related or have to go, let's say, to an audition, it would at least take me 2 hours to get from point A to point B. And this might age me, but there was no Google Maps or smartphones back then. So it was just like I had to print out these things, and if something was wrong or anything, then I'm screwed, right? So just giving that as like a precursor to how things have changed now with technology, that has been really great. But the thing that hasn't changed is where the arts organizations are, right? And so in 2017, there was a group of Southside artists that was like, well, if you're making a show about Southside Mexican Americans in Chicago, why are we going to travel 2 hours to go to a rehearsal space or to make the show, right? So with Free Street, we opened up the storefront. And so with that show, it's called Mi Juanito Joe. So next slide. And you can play the video. So with that show went in 2017 and had a couple extensions in 2018. And in 2019, there was a lot of programming called Hoodlum, story collecting. It doesn't have sound, so you can play it. And so after 2019, we know it was a pandemic. And so a lot of the programming that we had couldn't be done. So we asked a lot of community members, like, what should we do? We can't gather, right? And so because we were in back of the yards at 43rd and Ashland, there's a lot of factories there. There's a lot of people who are working class who still had to go to work, right? And so a lot of the responses was like, we need like food. So we opened a 24/7 pantry, and this is a video of us like unloading and like putting things outside of the storefront to provide as mutual aid. And so a lot of that, you can go to the next slide, is an example of like, yes, we are an arts organization, but what is our role as an arts organization in Back of the Arts, in a community on the South Side? We have a responsibility to not only, yes, like have free and accessible like arts, but we also have to create that bridge and like what is an artist's role in a community that has so many things going up against it. So for example, in Back of the Arts, the majority of the population is under 35. The majority of the population makes under $40,000 a year, and those are statistics that really guide in how we program a lot of our things that happen in the summer, in the fall, in the spring. And the reason why I break it up is because every season needs its own different type of curation. So in the summer, we always have our back to school events. So we gather 300 backpacks, we distribute them along with Plant Chicago. We also give away food during that time, school supplies, menstrual supplies as well, because when we go back to school, we're like, oh wait, what are essential items? And we never talk about periods, right? So we always make sure we have that program in the summer. And in the fall, we have our storytelling series. And so a lot of that is because we go to the different community meetings and ask, like, what are some things you want to see in your neighborhood? So for example, in the spring, you know, a lot happened since November, you know, and we're in a predominant immigrant neighborhood, Back of the Arts. And so some of the things that were asked were like, okay, we want a place to just be, right? To just have a place to breathe. And so our spring series of programming is called Open Hours, but it's really using arts as a tool for healing, right? So we have free yoga, free meditation. Our next workshop is Chisme as a creative practice, which Chisme means gossip. So it's always fun. So a lot of the times when we talk about community responsive programming, we have to consider what are the demographics of the neighborhood or the place that we're at. The timeline, of course. Like, what are the things that we have to offer and what are the things that are needed and being asked for? Because we can say, let's talk about, I don't know, like what's a really random topic that a lot of arts people love to talk about?
Racism.
Racism, yes. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's. But I feel like, let's just say we want to make, let's make a show about, I'm trying to think of a very bad example, and I can't think of a bad example. Let's talk about something really random. Let's just say I thought of a bad example. The community would be like, no, we don't want to talk about that, right? That's something we wouldn't do, right? So a lot of the times, people may ask us, hey, I don't know about that theater. That's not for me. I don't really like it. But I would really love to share stories about the neighborhood. I don't like how the news talks about Back of the Yards or Inglewood. Do you think we could get together and tell stories? And do you think we could perform them? And do you think we could have music to it? And do you think we could have this other thing behind there? And I'm like, yeah, I think that'd be good. And then later we'll do some storytelling workshops. And I'm like, you know what? That's theater. And they're like, what? Yeah, I'm like, that's theater. And so that's kind of the bridge building that we're talking about of maybe there may be a literal language barrier, but the way that we talk about things may not be translated in the same way that people may think of what theater is or the arts is. So, what's the next? Which I don't think we have time for.
Yeah, we can, if we have time at the end. So you can go to the next slide actually, just to have up here with us. So we're gonna in a second have you all come join us up here. We're feeling brave to be up here with us to move to more of a workshop sort of thing, but we just wanted to name some things we have coming up as well. Also, if you want to take a picture to come join us. Elizabeth also said something I just want to name is that we've, for the past 5 years, have been committed to paying all of our artists minimum wage. So we calculate how many hours someone will spend on a project and make sure they're paid that an hour. All our shows are free or pay what you can, and we also provide free child programming for parents. So if they want to come to a show, we make sure at least one show for everyone has a teaching artist available to watch kids so that they can enjoy the play. starts with the play, they can leave, and then they can go do something else, right? That also happens. Sometimes, like a young one will be like, I don't want to watch it, and then halfway through they'll be like, I want to watch the play, it sounds fun in there. So it's sort of fun to see how that goes.
And to add, all of our programming back to the arts is also bilingual.
Yes. So we have our open hours that Elizabeth was talking about at our storefront space. They're on Tuesdays, started this past week. Every other week. The Create Together, Grow Together is a Skillshare series we're doing. The applications for that are closed as of now, but in case you are interested in learning more about Free Street devising techniques and also maybe teaching other people skills you have, that's a space for that. We have an incredible event with Trisha Hersey, if you know her. She runs the NAP ministry. She wrote Rest is Resistance. She's an incredible person. She's also on our board, and she's doing an event at Wine Beer called Ranting for a Reason, where it'll sort of be like the moth, but people can come up and rant about whatever they want to rant about. And then she's going to do a keynote rant. And we're going to open up, we're sold out right now, but we're going to open up 50 more tickets this week for that event. And then we have our youth ensemble production, Part 2, opening May 1st. So we have a lot of opportunities to come be with us, whether you are looking for some artistic wellness or you are looking to rant about everything awful going on in our lives, or you want to see some art about water justice in our city. With that, I'd love to invite people to come make a circle with us up on the stage. If you're not feeling that exercise of participating, that's so fine. You can, similar to like the co-programming, feel free to stay in your chair and come up at any time, or if you're like, I want to go sit down at any time, that's fine. 30 minutes. I think he's yeah, cool. Yeah, let's take a minute here. We can step back over here. You can also follow a prompt from your chair. Maybe there's like a fellow audience buddy that also just wants to be in the chair, be back there. That's great. I love getting you all out of like the darkness and so I can see your face. Hey. So we just love to go around, hear your name and pronouns. We love to also just share our astrological signs, so if that motivates you, you can. So Katrina, she hers, Scorpio Sun, Sagittarius Rising, Leo Moon.
Hi, Elizabeth Mungaray, Capricorn Sun, Sagittarius Rising, Libra Moon. She, her.
Hello, hi Burnett, May Vim, Leo Sun, Pisces Rising, Scorpio Moon.
Hi, Avery Hum, she, her, and the only thing I know is that I'm a Libra.
Hi, I'm Holly, she, they, and I think I'm a Scorpio.
Denise, she, Aya, I'm a Sagittarius with a Leo rising and a Taurus moon.
Nicoya, L, she, her, and Pisces on the cusp of whatever comes before.
Hi, I'm Isabeau, she, they pronouns, and I'm a Cancer.
Lisa, she, her, Sagittarius.
Nate, he, him, Taurus, cusping Gemini.
I'm Hannah, she, her, I'm a
Stanley King, Gemini, sign of the twins.
Hi, Barry Feldman, he, Z pronouns, Leo, and I live in Rogers Park.
Marilyn, she, they, Virgo with Leo rising and Moon in Aquarius.
Hi, I'm Kendall, I use any pronouns. I am Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius Sun, Aries rising, Capricorn moon, and then just everything else is Sagittarius.
Wow.
Hi, Jake Gray, she, her pronouns. My sun is Aquarius, I have a Libra moon and a Scorpio rising, and I'm very static with the rest.
I am Lynn, use she, her pronouns, and I don't know any of my sun or moon, but I'm a Cancer. I'm very strong Cancer.
I'm Kevin Owusu. I am a cusp Capricorn and Aries.
Great. Okay.
He, him, his pronouns.
Amazing. Okay, so one of the first things, so we're going to base today's conversation on water, just to kind of give us a grounding topic in. So you'll see my shirt says joy and justice. So some of the things we like to pursue is how can we talk about these issues that are actually traumatizing, filled with a lot of pain, in ways that are joyful and not re-traumatizing, in ways that regalvanize or activate people to do it. So just kind of like hold that in our mind and space with us today. So for this first exercise, we also look movement. Me and Elizabeth especially, we're your movement girls. So we're gonna go around. I'm gonna encourage you to do a sound and movement or gesture that reminds you or feels like you're moving as or in water. You will do it, and then we will all do it back at you, right? So if I did one, then you would do it with me, and then we'll go the other way this time, and then you would do yours, we'd all do it back. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and so on. Yeah? Okay. I can go first, just do it. So I'll go. Bloop, 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 bloop. A small joyful memory you have with water. Small can mean small like age, I was young. Small can mean small like this morning I woke up and I was so thirsty and I looked and I still had that cup of water from the night before and I grabbed it and it was somehow still cold and I've never been more grateful, right? That's really tiny, so it could be whatever. So 20 seconds, person A, share your story, go. Person B, you are going to share in 20 seconds time you stood up for water. So time you stood up for water, again this could be very small. I was brushing my teeth and I turn the water off, right, as to not waste it. This, or it could be, I was part of a strategy one time to help with creating a policy around clean water, right? It could be whatever you want, just for the spectrum, no pressure, but a time you stood up for water. 20 seconds. Go. Movement. You each shared 2 different types of stories, and now Elizabeth is going to tell us the next part of our devising workshop today.
Amazing. So I'm glad we were able to tell stories about water. So the next thing we want to do is we really want to start the process of developing a show, right? Now that we talked about water, we're ready for it? Yeah, of course. Sounds great. So Katrina's handing out Post-its, a pen, and what I want you to do is write down a body of water that you all know. Maybe you're not from Chicago, right? So it could be, yeah, so maybe it's a body of water, it could be Lake Michigan, right? Or maybe you live near the river. Who is we? I don't know. But write down your Post-it, a body of water that we all know. Chicago. Okay? And then we can put it on that big Post-it. Don't think about it too hard.
So just answer Chicago.
No, it doesn't have to be Chicago.
Yeah. Any bodies of water we know. As many Post-its as you want.
You don't have to think about it too much. It's gonna just help inform. I got it back first.
Yeah, for sure.
The body of water that we all know in my house is the bath. You know what I mean? Like that. Where do we put it? Oh, right above. Thanks for body of water.
Write down as many as we know. Oh, these are done? You will be yes, you're not free from Post-its yet.
List as many as you can.
The scope of it?
Oh, list as many as you can. Yeah, if you put it on one.
Oh, yeah, that's what you're going to know about the bodies of water.
I'm going to give y'all time. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're not done with the Post-its.
Yeah, we're not done with them. So you're good. You're good. So in true facilitation manner, I'm just going to read some of them off. So some bodies of water that we all know, for bodies of water in Chicago, are the Mississippi River, the Atlantic, Lake Michigan, Pacific Ocean, El Rio Grande, Gulf of Mexico. Okay, Gulf of Mexico. It is a social justice conference.
Yes. Yes.
The Chicago River, Lake Michigan, Gulf of America. We're still the U.S., it's fine, no judgment here. We listen and we don't judge. A spilled glass in the middle of the night, yep. The shower, Atlantic Ocean, Niagara Falls, East River, our own bodies, that's right. Colorado River, okay. Skokie Canal, Illinois River, Lake of Ozarks, Lake Ontario, English Channel, yeah, okay, wonderful. I'm glad you know so many types of water, right? So the next thing I'm gonna ask is think of all these bodies of water, from the spilled water on the counter, to the ocean, to the the Gulf of Mexico / America. And what are the ways water is being mistreated? Yeah. Yes? You could write it down, yeah. How is water being mistreated? Anyone know? And again, we're in abundance of Post-its, so feel free to write more than one response.
Post-its are half our budget.
Yeah.
People and Post-its.
Farming. Runoff.
Come on, get folks. Got like 10 more seconds. Well, I'm thinking like
Well, yeah.
all right, and if you haven't put your Post-it on already, there's still time. It's okay. Go ahead, put it in.
My person like 3 a.m. They don't get it fixed till 9. And just like all that water just flooded my neighborhood.
How do you drop it? Nice. Perfect. I love the fact that we have more Post-its on for the mistreatment of water than actual bodies of water. Oh my god. Oh, late stage capitalism. Okay, oil spills. Okay, the disrespect. I love that. Oil pollution, limited access due to infrastructure. Okay, whaling, lack of spiritual acknowledgement. Okay, well, those are some that stood out right now. And don't worry, we're gonna get a chance to read all of these, but we're gonna do it in groups. So I'm just gonna do 1, 2, 3. Remember your number, and then go into that group. Okay? So yeah.
1 minute.
But I imagine that they're connected because of the little tertiary bacteria that grows and that causes the bleaching. So even
Most of the
Training in this data center.
20 seconds.
I was in like a apartment. I don't even know.
It has impact on the fish.
Advocate for more greater transparency and the
All right, that's your time.
Amazing time. I'm sure we have such amazing research. NASA would be jealous. So the next part is, now that you've found your body of water, your article, what we're going to do next is, from that article, you're going to take out a phrase or a sentence that stands out to your group, right? Or an image that you found in that article. You know, summary. Group, right? From there, you're going to create a gesture to it. So for example, why do I say that? So let's say mine is Bubbly Creek, right? And I was like, mistreatment, infrastructure, right? And I'm like, you know what, I found an article about the Damon silos, how the water is just so dirty because they're going to float it. My gesture might be, right? With my group. That's a little example, right? So doesn't have to be this whole beautiful 8-count gesture thing. Find a gesture with your group, right?
This is a phrase and a gesture.
Yes.
Yeah, so for example, like Bubbly Creek, right? Infrastructure. My article was on the Damon silos are just imploded. that's gonna affect, Baltic Creek. So I was like, explosion, right? My gesture is, does that make sense?
And you're gonna perform these to each other, and if you're feeling stuck on the gesture, we created 20 earlier. So you already have a vocabulary you can go back to, or you can adapt to fit the moment or to juxtapose your, So I'm gonna give you 3 minutes to make this performance.
No, what we do together.
We're gonna do together,
So individuals all should roll up. One way to do this is
so I'm making
everybody test on the nose.
Next group.
Okay.
This is a glaring reminder that we are too close to devastation. It is time to remove Line 5 from the Great Lakes.
I love the different iterations of like the gesture work, really speaking for like the articles and for the data and the research that you guys done. So right now,
I think we have 5 minutes left of our day. I think that this was kind of a quick demonstration of, we really could make a layout of everything we said today. Like, we don't need much more, and I think something else we tried to also look at is like, what do we have? What is the materials we have? How do we need less than maybe what like theater teaches us we need, or reuse things that we already have. So just kind of like even having that abundance mentality for like devising. But curious to leave it open if anyone has questions for us or any thoughts or reflections from that.
Yes, hi. If you were doing this like in like a longer process, where would you go from here?
Yeah, so many different places. So some of the things, right, so we continue, I think, to have many different prompts of our own stories. We maybe go, like this past weekend, we took a group of students to Friends of Chicago where we had a student conference on water, where they got to like attend different sessions that were about water while the teaching artists gathered like 50 stories from other people that talked to us. We would interview people from our community partner organizations, but then it's a lot of like spaghetti at the wall to really sort of figure out like what are the forms that meet the content that meet also then like the action. So a lot of just like playing around in that. I think as directors normally we either come in with a little experimentation time to figure out what like the grounding aesthetics are going to be, or maybe we already have kind of a vision so that there's a future. They used cardboard for all of the puppets and set pieces, and there was like a lot of imagery about sunflowers with remediation being a big part of it. When we did a show called Wasted with the youth, we had these like plastic Target bags that then would become clouds and things. It also had a house theme through that. We were comparing the timelines of environmental justice movement moving in Chicago at the same time the house theme was, and the different spaces people were searching to like be able to breathe, they're either in the or in the air. So it's a lot of playing around.
Yeah, literally, it's so like
Research.
yeah, research, and also just playing with different forms. And like one of the things I always like in a rehearsal process, I'm like, I feel there's so many gifts that every person brings. So even in the There's a Future process, one of our ensemble members was a puppeteer, she's a builder. And so we were doing a scene on development on the south side, right? She's like, you know what would be really cool if there was a huge The Man puppet, And so like, oh my god, yeah, let's try it. Let's have this huge head that's auctioning off the houses. I feel like that's great. So I feel like there's a lot of experimentation and play in every rehearsal process. And then towards the end, it's like when we kind of like pinpoint, like, okay, this is what stays, and this is how we can amplify something.
And let's say you're in a process developing a show with the group or in community. I guess one, what is the full length of a session? And I guess you run into moments where like the idea comes like towards the end of the process. Like how do you, where do you guys sit on still trying to make the product, quote unquote, come about, even with whatever time, like letting it blossom whenever it blossoms rather than trying to force it along too early.
Yeah, I think that's why it's a year to 2 years. And I think that's like a process where also, so this summer something we're gonna try is we're gonna do like a 2-week intensive with a group of artists around like the brother missions theme. And then we're gonna sit together and be like, what do we wanna pursue that kind of came out of it? Or is this an idea that maybe like is more difficult and it needs like a little bit more or something like that? So I think that there are sometimes we create some natural stopping places to like look at what's happened and reflect a little bit, rather than being like, okay, 6 weeks, here we go, we're gonna start it. It's like 3 months, we're gonna meet twice a week, and then we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back, and then we're gonna see what happens, and then we're gonna take a little break, and then, you know, and sometimes we even like brought shows back to be like, it's actually not done. We thought it was done, let's bring it back, like, let's refine it more.
Yeah.
These ideas are ongoing.
There is a future, we did a version in the summer for like, for Night on the Parks, and it was very kid friendly, and so we're like, pollution, it's like farts, nobody likes it, right? So that kind of thing, and when we brought it back, there was a story that came up about, this horrible industry or corporation called Matt Asphalt. And so we developed a scene, right? And about like 3 weeks before, I lived in the area, so there was a whole settlement happening, right? Where you had to get all your paperwork together in order to like get part of the settlement, right? And so we already had this scene kind of already developed, part of it, and I literally came late to rehearsal because I was trying to submit my stuff at the post office to get part of the settlement. And I'm like running around, going to like Alderman's office, Teresa Ma's office, going to different places, trying to make sure I get the right documents. And I get to rehearsal, I'm like 30 minutes late, and I'm like, y'all, I was just living the play. Like, I literally was like, just did that. And so through that, I was like, okay, even if we want some type of justice or some type of something out of these cancer-causing emissions that are happening in our neighborhood, even to get a piece of that justice, it causes so much stress, and so like, they keep giving us the runaround. So we put that in the show, you know, 3 weeks into it, and it's just being flexible also, and just being real with the experiences that happen, and not being precious about the actual material, because at the end of the day, it's like, how do you serve the story that's,
You know, the urgency like, is still going as we're building it, so we don't want to like deny that flexibility.
yeah.
Could you actually speak just like a touch more on that idea about the urgency and the immediacy, you know, about like how it goes directly into what you're working on right now? We touched a little bit about it in the applied theater panel earlier, about how you know, applied theater is most effective when it can be in that immediacy and in response. So just if you could just speak a little bit more about that, that'd be great.
Well, I think that like, right, a lot of the things we did today were really quick. And I think that's how we design things here when we have more time, is to be quick and to teach like, we just gotta keep making and making, because then it's not like, okay, we're now 20 minutes. And we might have conversations sometimes, but I think that there's like, by having part of the process be quickness, it allows for that to be brought back in at any moment. And like, I think what you brought up was a great example. I think when the whole plant was imploded in 2020, we were already having to adapt wasted at that time to be online instead of in person, but I ended up getting like on the phone with someone as they were like at a protest, and like, they were like, let's record this, and we turned that into an interview, and then that made it into play. So I think another piece of it is because like we're so invested and involved like with the folks that are doing on the ground work, we're already right there catching it and can then like add it in. So yeah, I think not being precious, but teaching that quickness is important.
And I think just maintaining that relationship with organizers as well. So for the new project, we'll get staff meetings, and I'm a gapper, okay? Like, I'm in pain because I have dental surgery, so imagine me without this and me talking to you. So I get staff meetings, and I'm like, oh my God, Katrina, did you hear about the data centers? Like, I was just at a meeting, and I know you're talking about like water, but you know, I was talking to this person, and you know, what's happening in California right now is because of data centers. Do you know Illinois has, is one of the states with the highest amount of data centers in the country? No, what? And so it just goes to like being in communication, yes, with each other, but also with the different organizers. There are like the things that we hear. So it's just literally, I always find it like the question like, oh, how are you involved? And like, we just show up. You know, it's like, it's just showing up and being there is usually my response to those things. And I feel like that's, when we talk about urgency, a lot of organizing things and unfortunately, is always in response to something.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But we also like don't, we all have different degrees of this, like on when is the script really done? It really isn't ever. And if it is, it's like, for me, it's like a month before opening, you know, and we do like a longer text. So for like maybe a storefront, either we do like 2 weeks, so that we can like really play with everybody else too while we're finalizing it. And sometimes like the thing gets added in text, or like that transition is super weird, and also this thing happens, so like let's insert it here, it makes sense. So that likeness can also be in that space too. Yeah, it's 2:48, so we don't want to keep the rest of your day running too far behind. But I have business cards, we have our emails on them. We love to be in conversation about this stuff. We love to consult with people about this stuff. We love to just like grab a coffee about this stuff. So please contact us.
we also have an Instagram where you can be, where you can find everything.
Everything we do.
It's called free_st_theater.
Yes. Cool. Okay.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you all for being a part of the workshop. Next up at 3 p.m. we have the Workers Teatro Considering the Continuum of Abuse workshop. 15-minute break after that, and at 4:45 we have panel number 2, Applied Theater and the Carceral System. So we'll see you back in here in about 15 minutes. Thank you all so much for your time and attention.